Hi everyone. We'll be waiting for another 1 or 2 minutes for everybody to join, and then we'll start. Thank you. All right. So let's start the webinar. Great. A very good morning to all of you in the call, and also afternoon and evening to the folks attending from different geographical region. Thanks for taking your valuable time and attending this webinar. As we all are aware that the current situation is not so good uh, across the globe as the world is fighting against this COVID-19 pandemic. The only request from our team is, and the only ask is at this stage is keep practicing social distancing and stay safe. So before we get started, some general housekeeping activities. If you have any questions related to the webinar, please do post in the chat and we would be answering all of these questions at the end of the webinar. We'll make sure that we reply back to you with those answers, even if we can't answer some of them during the call. This webinar is for 30 minutes. The last 5 minutes we will be doing the Q&A. Hope we could answer some of the questions that you have after this webinar. A quick introduction. My name is Harish Kumar. I'm the product head, and with me I have my head of sales, Rakesh Rao. Hey Rakesh, good morning and welcome to the webinar.
Hi, Harish. Thanks for having me. Thank you for the quick introduction. Good morning, everybody, from wherever you are joining. Good afternoon, good evening. So, hope this will be an informative session for you guys. Thank you.
Great. So let's talk about what is the learning objective. What are the takeaways that you're going to have from today's webinar? It's an interesting things that we're going to share today. Two interesting stories, one from healthcare industry and the other from financial industry. We're going to talk about their challenges, what was their data management strategy which they wanted to adopt, and through a demo, we are going to show how DataArchiva we configured it and able to align with those data management strategies. So that's the takeaway. So you're going to be very interesting to use cases that we're going to talk in this session today. All right, so welcome to the episode 3 webinar. This is a 6 episode webinar, and we'll be covering in every episode some topic related to data management and talk on how we discovered and learned some customer challenges and created solution that can help customers overcome it as well. We started with how Salesforce digital transformation started and how it evolved in the coming years, followed by the data governance, which is also a key component that we discussed in the last webinar. Today's topic is more relatable as we will be covering specific industry segment. We're going to drill more deeper into two scenarios. One is specific to healthcare pharma industry, and the second is on the financial industry today. So today the talk is more like a real customer use cases, and then let's see how what you can take it from here. All right. So the first thing that we're going to discuss today is about a company which is into a global pharma company. And this company is having like a big presence. They cater to 5 billion people overall, with high quality medicines. They have 5,000 plus products which they sell, generic drugs, branded drugs, some OTC, over the counter remedies. There's so many products that they sell, and they have presence basically over 150 plus countries, which means across the globe they have a good amount of presence, with a great 25,000 plus team worldwide. We are talking about this company as a business wise. When you see the quantum of data that they generally do it on a day to day basis, really huge, right? Now, when we want to talk about this technology adoption, for them it is all over the place. They have their own data centers, hybrid applications are being there. They have hosted applications, and good amount of cloud adoption is also there. Like, that basically the technology stack itself is so diverse, right? So now we are discussing predominantly on Salesforce, and how Salesforce presence is there for this particular ecosystem, and that's where we discussed with them on the business use case related to the Salesforce. Now, they have multiple instances across different countries, and each instances behave differently and cater to different business units. But some of the technologies which some use are being utilized by other division as well. Like for example, Viva CRM is also one of the integral part, and since it is also a popular product in the pharma industry, is being used widely in this scenario as well. They see a good usage of the application across their Salesforce portfolio, and they were looking to review the plans to adopt a data management strategy, looking at certain indicators that we see on the Salesforce aspect. So let's talk about what are the challenges, or what are the things that they wanted to specifically look as a data management strategy. So when they want to review the strategy, the key challenges that they see primarily is the data growth. They want to see going forward next few 5 years, where they see, if this is how the data is growing, how they can make sure that it is being used wisely. Number two is also they have to check with the data growth, how is the impact on the CRM performance which they are using so far today. And since they work in this pharma, they are bound with stringent government governance that needs to be followed. So having said that, when they talk about Salesforce, they also wanted to see as a data management strategy. As I said, they have a different ecosystem. So what is the alternative way if they can use a Heroku platform where they can use as an alternative way where they can move the data there? So that was one of the strategies which they want to see. Having used Viva CRM, they see that there are a lot of data that has been generated by two of the big modules, order management and call reporting, which they use. So they figured out that they need to archive old and inactive data from this modules, and their plan is to archive all these transactions that is happening through this HCP, the healthcare providers, and also whatever orders they're processing older than 3 years. They want to make sure that can they move it to an archiving solution. But the key things also they wanted to have is these transactions, wherever it go, they need to get it back at one point of time, and not in a specific in a file format or something. Is it possible to get that back into Salesforce? Because sometimes they need to review those old orders and try to see if they can clone it and again reprocess it for some of the new customers who has come back after a few years. So all those scenarios they wanted to see if this is possible to get the data back. So this were their archiving policy which they were discussing, and then today we are going to show through a demo. Rakesh is going to take you through one demo to show that which are the key few areas that we helped them to achieve that their basically key points which they want to do with the data archiving strategy. So over to you, Rakesh. So appreciate if you can just throw some light or show some capabilities on how we help this customer in their data archiving strategy.
Thank you, Harish. It was beautifully explained. Those use cases are very important for us to understand what are the capabilities of Data Archiva or Data Connectiva. So, thank you for that. Right. So now, if you have seen our webinar series, in the last couple of series, we talked about Data Archiva and then how we can archive within the system ecosystem of Salesforce. That is big objects. Now, so we are talking about data connectiva. So what is this data connectiva? So data connectiva is a component which sits on top of DataArchiva, and this will help you to archive your records to any external storage from your Salesforce storage. So you can either any of the relation database like Heroku, AWS, Azure. So any of these relation database you can use, and then you can using data connectiva, so you can move the data from your Salesforce storage to external storage. So once you configure the storage, so then you get endpoint URL. So that is where you just have to give this endpoint URL, and then you will be able to configure the data connectiva, so which will move the data from your storage to external storage of your choice, right? So in this case, we are using Heroku. So that is what was the customer use case, and that is what the database which he used. So now, before we show the archiving, so I just wanted to take a step back and show you how you can schedule and filter this. So as Harish was talking about in his use case, he explained that one of the key feature which they wanted to archive is the records which are more than 3 years old. So using SOQL criteria, so you can filter. So a simple SOQL query would be able to help you to filter the records which you want to archive. So you put that it is, like, say, 3 years of data which you want to archive. The status is closed. So you can put many number of criteria. So accordingly, so you can initiate the archiving. So this is a filter criteria. So once you set it up, so you can use this for custom objects and as well as standard objects. So here we have talked about Viva. So Viva used to generate lot of data through their app, and then so they wanted to manage order, they wanted to manage call reportings, and then they wanted to archive, because these are the two components, these are the two objects, external objects, which used to generate a lot of data from Viva CRM. So that is where they wanted to archive these two objects. So that is where it is configured. So now if I move to next one, so here is where you can schedule the archiving. So like you can initiate by clicking once you configure. So let's say we have already configured 11 objects. If you can see here, so there are already configured 11 objects for archiving. So using those filter criteria, and then if I click here, so archiving will be initiated. So on demand basis, you can also archive here. So the one more way to archive is that if you look at here, so you can also schedule archiving. So you can schedule hourly, daily, weekly, monthly. So depending on your requirement, you can schedule the archiving. So once you schedule this archiving, so depending on the filter criteria again, so archiving will take place in the backend. So archiving whenever the filter criteria is matched, so it keeps on archiving at a scheduled time, right? So now then there was one more thing. So how do we sync the metadata? So if there are any changes which the customer makes in the metadata, so how are we going to sync? So that is where we have two ways to do it. So one is on demand. You can do a metadata sync, so where if you know that you have made some changes in a particular object, so you can go here and sync the metadata. So that will keep the metadata updated all the time. So the other way to do it is, so you don't have to do anything there. So because how the entire archiving engine is designed is that, so whenever you initiate an archive, either by clicking on the play button and archiving, or by the policy itself, so by scheduling the archiving, so in the policy, so first thing what it does is it checks for any metadata changes. If there are any metadata changes, like let's say they have deleted some record or made changes in some record or added few fields and records, then in that case what it will do is it will check for those metadata changes, and then it will sync, and once the metadata sync is completed, then only it will initiate an archiving process at any point of time. So you are even though you are archiving it in outside storage Heroku, your metadata is always synced, right? So this is one thing. So now other point which I wanted to talk about is the archived data. So if you see, this is a Heroku system, so, and you can see these are the records which are already archived. So these are the records which are already archived in the external storage. Now you can ask me how we can bring this data back to the Salesforce system. So that is one of the use case which they had. So if you see here, so 1098, so 1098 is already is archived, and it is present in the external storage. Now if you see that, go here, then you see that DA component. So this is where you are seeing that this is already archived. So I showed you in the external storage as well as DA component. So it is not present in the Salesforce storage. It is present in the DA component. So, and customer will be able to, the user will be able to see this record under the live record itself, right? So for the user, even though it is coming from the archive data, so they will be able to see the record under the live parent object itself. So now, if it is very simple, if I say restore, so you will be able to see this record moving to Salesforce storage, right? So the data was here, and then now we are moving it to the Salesforce storage. So it should come up. So while it is coming back, so I will just like to summarize the entire activity what we have showed here. So so now we have showed that by using DataArchiva, you can move your data to any relation database external storage, and then you can also set up archiving policies, and then schedule and put up filter criteria for archiving. You can also it will also take care of metadata sync, and then you can also do an on-demand archiving. Then so yeah, now you see that this data is already I was talking about 1098. So now you see that this is a case number. So now we have retrieved the data from your external storage back to Salesforce system. So I showed you how we can archive and then move the data back to external from external storage to Salesforce storage. So we have talked about all this briefly in this quick demo of the product itself. So yeah, I would like Harish to take it forward from here.
Thank you, Rakesh, for this wonderful demo. Yes, if you see, then customers had this need of storing it in an external system, able to view it and able to retrieve it whenever they require. It is more not like archiving solution; it's more like a live data which they see, or also able to give to their agents, to their own employees to manage the data. All right, so let's talk about one more use cases today. This is one more story is related to the financial industry. They're one of the Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies with operations spread across 9 countries and have 20 offices across the globe. And they are into managing private and enterprise financial data. They process tons of financial data, and they have to ensure the customer financial information is kept secure all the while. If you talk about the business itself, they're having a 6 billion revenue, so you can understand the amount of volume of financial transaction that happens on a day-to-day basis, right? And for doing this, it has to deal with complex data relationships and algorithms, right? So if you talk about their technology stack, they are being heavily using Salesforce, and they actually customize the Salesforce specific to their requirement. They have a lot of agreements, they have a lot of SMS conversation that happen. They need to do a lot of training to the customers, and also internally, because being a financial industry, they have to go through a lot of acts and new laws that comes to it, how to train their internal team, train the customers on using the solution. So that's how their entire stack of Salesforce is. And to make sure that all this data is kept secure, they are also installed Shield to ensure that the data is secure on top of the existing Salesforce. Now, having said that, to look at the complexity level, they have like 100 plus objects that they use. So this many solutions that build. So that's how they highly customize the applications. They have 30 plus level of object relationship that they have. Their complexity in terms of fields and triggers are really big, right? And in addition to that, they also use few app extension solutions that they integrated with their solution to provide additional support to their customers. So this is their technology stack specifically on the Salesforce. And let's talk about their challenges. And if you talk about their key challenges, also has been like, since they have been using, and then their exponential growth and the volume of data that they're handling is more. They see that data growth is also a key challenges, and all this area that we talked about, agreements and trainings, records, and those things that has been kept in the Salesforce, they want to see that how they can really plan their data growth in the coming years. And key in thing is, yeah, the data is sensitive, that they have to ensure that customer data is kept secure. And for that, they don't want to take any risk to keep it anywhere in the external entity where the data is exposed. They're not able to give a specific role based permission to specific data and everything. If they are being kept in separate, archiving into a specific location, the entire data is exposed somewhere, and they cannot have certain controls on the top of it. So it was very predominant for them that, hey, why can't we look into big object, because big object is something new and more native to Salesforce. It's in the same ecosystem, and definitely though it's a big data system, as a data growth, data cost wise, it is very good for them. So the key challenge with big object was, big object doesn't keep data encrypted. So what is the workaround doing that? They want to make sure that data is encrypted even if it is within the Salesforce ecosystem. That's the second use case they had. Third is data integrity. The number of complex relationships that they have, they want to ensure that tomorrow, if I want to make a sense out of some information, those data integrity has to be there. That's another problem in terms of data management. The other one was the CCPA regulation that they want to follow to ensure that any point of time, if customers request for their P2 information, they need to get this immediately available and given to the customer. And finally, there has to be proper audit in place in terms of whether it is archiving, restoring, viewing of those information that has been archived. It has to follow the same protocol that they are defined in their existing system. So these were their data management strategy challenges and problems. And again, I'm coming back to Rakesh. Rakesh, can you please just show some demo with big objects, and how you are able to take care of this challenging data compliance issue from the customer?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Harish. Again, this was explained wonderfully. So this use case, yeah. So now earlier, what we talked about is storing your archive data to an external system. Now we are talking about how we can archive the data within the Salesforce ecosystem. So that is where, if you see, so there are different storage type which Salesforce provides. One is your data storage, file storage, and big object storage. So big objects storage, what is this big objects? Big objects is Salesforce very own big objects, big data system. So where you can keep a huge amount of data here. So that is where we leveraged on the capabilities of big objects, and we have used data archiver component to move the data from the Salesforce to the big objects. So coming specific to their use case, so as Harish was explaining, so big objects will not support Salesforce Shield. So then how one of the requirements from the customer is that they wanted to they use Shield, and they wanted to keep the data when they archive, so they wanted to keep the data encrypted. So see, these are the few fields which we have taken, where we want to archive. Under this case, these are the 4 fields which we wanted to keep it encrypted while we archive, right? So I will show you how this is done. So now, if you see here, so if you see the engineering requirement number, SLA, so all these fields are encrypted. So that means, so when you have configured this, so even when you are archived this record, so these are all encrypted in the big objects, right? So then how can we view this encrypted records? So we can view this encrypted record, so by going to our app settings. So this is DataArchiva app settings, and then depending on the profile permissions, whether it is user or depending on the profile, so you can view the record, whether it is if you go down here, so we can use the record depending on the permission. So you can select whether you want to allow this user to view the record or not. So a decrypted view, so you can give the permission from here. So one more use case which they had was as Harish was giving you the information about CCPA. So CCPA regulation was one of the key factor which they wanted to cover in the use case. So whenever there is a customer so who want to see their information, so those information should be readily available for them. So that is where, even though the data is archived, so if you from the find, so data archive component, from the data archive component, if you if you go to find, so you can look at all the data which is related to the customer. So under case, you see all this data which is related to the customer available readily for anybody who wants to view this data immediately. So this is one of the requirement which customer has. So in this use case, just to summarize, what we discussed about is how we can archive it in within the Salesforce ecosystem, that is big objects. Then how we have handled encryption for a few of those fields, and then how we can find the record, how we can encrypt and decrypt the record, and depending on the user permission, how we can see the decrypted record as well. So we have seen all this in this. So this is one of the use case which customer was really interested in, and then we gave the solution to them, and they are happy with what we have provided to them. Yeah. So this is about it for the second use case. I would like Harish to take it from here on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Rakesh, for this good demo. Yes, so going forward, if you see, Data Archiva has been a perfect blend to ensure that the governance and retentions are taken care. And that's what we do for our Salesforce customers. And not only this particular two areas that we discussed today, most of the customers, when we discuss, we talk to them and review their entire Salesforce ecosystem, and then we try to address just other few areas. They have a lot of audit history, close lead that happens, historic event that are they're keeping it, old email activity that happens. All those things, if they are effectively managing it, they're able to get a better ROI on using the existing Salesforce data storage itself. So having said that, we talk about so many features, and these are the features which helps customers across different verticals to align with what their data management strategy is. So we're not discussing each and every details today, but we'll be covering in further sessions some of the aspects how it is solved a certain customer case study today. Yes, so this summarizes today's episode, and the next session is we're talking about Service Cloud. It's also one of the interesting cloud topic, because Salesforce Service Cloud is being used as a portal for a lot of bigger enterprise customers, helping their customers to derive good businesses. There is a lot of self-help portals, communities, and knowledge bases which is all integrated, and how Data Archiva and Salesforce Service Cloud can help you to provide a better customer service and increase the business growth. Keeping a check on the data growth is something that you're going to see in the next episode. So thanks again for being part of this webinar. Now we are open to questions. So if you have any specific questions, please do post, and then we'll take it one by one. So I have one question. Says that, do we need to install any managed package? Yes. Data Archiva is a managed package which is available in the App Exchange, and that's where you're going to download the application, and then able to help you to do this data archiving process for Salesforce. Another question is, does it support bulk archiving? Yes, it does. That's the entire reason about this processes. You can plan your archiving, and then what we do is, in the backend, it takes care of this. It runs as a job, and then by chunk, it makes sure that all the data is technically moved from Salesforce live system and put it in the archiving system. Okay, one other question is, can I retrieve my records from the big objects? You have, there are two ways to answer this. One is, are you saying retrieve back to Salesforce, or if you want to just retrieve it separately? One way is, you can actually have there is a Einstein analytics that can run on the top of big object itself that Salesforce provide. You just can map it out and then create multiple reports that you require. If you want to retrieve a specific record, that's what some of the use case customer is. That record doesn't come as is it comes as a new record, and then if you wanted to clone or use something out of it or make a sense out of it, you can do that. I hope I answered that question well. Does it support analytics that can run? Yes, it does support analytics, not only on the big object, but also if it is, since we are storing in some cases into external system, it's a SQL Server system where you can plug in any external analytics tool that is available in the market as well. Is DA and DC two separate apps? Um, yes and no. One is DC is the extended app of DA, so you need to have a DataArchiva as the main component package, and then you can install DC on the top of it. That gives you additional ability to archive it to external system. DA is specifically for big objects, but if you wanted to put it somewhere in Excel system, that's where DC comes into picture. But though in the backend, yes, it's a two different application, but as a front end, it's a one single application with the same features that you see today, which is shown the same UI. You will get it. The option, the object creation, everything is from one single entity. How can we add objects which we need to archive? There is an option once you download it. We have that UI which is given to the Salesforce admin, wherein they can say, hey, I want to configure the object. So you choose, you get a UI wherein you can choose the entire standard, custom, all the objects are shown to you. You pick one object and then accordingly take next, and you can do that. What it does is not only picks the same object, but also it's all relationships are pulled in the same UI, and they help you to configure the entire set of objects. So if let's say we're talking about a case object and it has a case detail which is its own master detail relationship is there, it will ensure that the case and the case detail has to be archived to ensure that the data integrity is maintained. So that's how it handles archiving, and also will restore it to ensure that there is that parent child relationship is there. Great. All right. So thank you so much. We took another 3 more minutes for this call, but it was a nice session. Thank you so much for joining the call, and talk to you soon in the next session. Thank you.
Thank you very much.